When someone disrespects you, the urge to confront them can feel overwhelming. You want to make them understand how they hurt you, maybe even teach them a lesson. But the most powerful move isn't in what you say, it's in what you take away. That's where silence becomes your greatest weapon. When you withdraw access to your time, energy, and presence, you send a message without ever opening your mouth. People who disrespect you often do it because they assume you'll still be there. They think you'll tolerate it, that your kindness will keep you around. They grow comfortable taking your availability for granted. But when you stop answering their calls, stop replying to their messages, stop showing up where you used to, it creates a silence they weren't ready for. Suddenly, they're left talking to an echo, trying to figure out what went wrong. That confusion is where the regret begins. There's a unique kind of discomfort that comes from being shut out without explanation. It forces a person to sit with their own behavior. They start to retrace their steps, wondering which moment tipped the balance. This reflection is far more effective than any argument you could have had because it makes them confront themselves. Your absence becomes a mirror. Withdrawing access doesn't mean you're being passive, it means you're choosing peace over pointless confrontation. It means you've realized that your time and energy are too valuable to spend on someone who doesn't see your worth. You're not punishing them, you're protecting yourself. And the more you focus on your own space, the more powerful you become in their eyes. At first, they may think you're just being distant. They might assume you'll come back like you always did. But days turn into weeks, and the silence grows heavier. They notice your glow returning, your focus shifting, your energy no longer orbiting around them. That's when the reality hits. They lost access to you, not because you made a scene, but because you made a decision. You don't need to slam a door to make someone feel its weight. Just close it quietly and walk away with your dignity. When you do that, you leave them with something more haunting than anger, the sound of nothing. And in that silence, they begin to understand what they lost. Not because you told them, but because you stopped giving them what they never truly valued. There's something incredibly powerful about transforming in silence. When you begin to level up without broadcasting every step, you shift the energy around you, while others are watching for a reaction, waiting to see if you'll break or lash out. You're building quietly, consistently, behind the scenes. And nothing creates more regret in someone who disrespected you than realizing they underestimated your strength, only to see you rise without ever acknowledging them. The mistake many people make is assuming you need to announce your growth. They think success is only real when it's posted, spoken about, or proven. But real growth doesn't need validation. It doesn't ask for attention. It simply happens. And when you begin to level up mentally, emotionally, financially, or spiritually without making noise, you gain an edge. You become unpredictable. They can't gauge your moves, and that mystery becomes intimidating. While they're still stuck in the same cycles, gossiping, doubting, or trying to provoke you, you're shifting gears. You're investing in yourself, reading more, moving differently, choosing your peace over petty conversations. Suddenly, you're not replying like you used to. You're not explaining yourself, not attending every argument you're invited to. That's what makes people take a second look, not your words, but your evolution and the beauty of it. You don't have to seek revenge. Your glow up becomes the message. It tells them, you never broke me. You just reminded me who I am. Every silent step you take toward your purpose, every goal you accomplish without their knowledge, every inner battle you win, it becomes part of a story they never saw coming. They thought you'd stay stuck. They thought you needed their validation. They thought their disrespect would define you. But your silence proved otherwise. Over time, they start to see it. Maybe it's through mutual friends. Maybe it's a photo. Maybe it's just the way your energy changes when you walk into a room. But they notice. And when they do, the regret sinks in. Not because you rubbed your success in their face, but because you didn't have to. The version of you they try to tear down doesn't even exist anymore. You evolve past the point of explanation. This is the quiet kind of revenge. Not loud, not angry, just steady, intentional growth. Let them watch from a distance. Let them wonder how you did it. The truth is, you didn't level up to prove anything. You did it for you. But the fact that it silences their disrespect, that's just a bonus. Staying calm in the face of disrespect is one of the most powerful things you can do. It's not weakness, it's control. When someone disrespects you, they often expect an emotional reaction. They want you to get angry, to raise your voice, to argue back. They want to see you lose your composure because it gives them power. But when you remain composed, when you choose silence over shouting and peace over chaos, you completely shift the dynamic. You deny them the satisfaction of seeing you unravel. Composure is not about suppressing your feelings, it's about mastering them. It's choosing not to let someone else's lack of respect pull you out of character. It's knowing your worth so deeply that you don't feel the need to explain it to anyone. That kind of self-possession is rare, and it leaves a lasting impression. The person who tried to provoke you ends up feeling confused, even unsettled, because they can't figure out why you're not reacting the way they expected. When you keep your cool, you expose something powerful. They don't control your emotions. You do. That's what creates regret. Disrespectful people rely on chaos. They feed off drama, off loud responses, off tension. But when you give them nothing but silence, or a composed response they didn't see coming, they're left to sit with their own behavior. Without your emotional reaction to distract them, they start to see how out of line they really were. Remaining calm also protects your energy. Not every battle is worth fighting, and not every comment deserves your attention. Sometimes, the most powerful response is to keep living your life as though their words or actions meant nothing. Because the truth is, if it doesn't shake your peace, it doesn't deserve your energy. And in that silence, they begin to feel the sting of being irrelevant to your emotional world. There's a strength in calmness that speaks louder than any argument ever could. It says, "You don't have the power to disrupt me." That message hits harder than yelling ever will. Over time, they notice. They realize you didn't just walk away, you walked away without needing to make a scene. And that kind of exit, full of dignity and grace, is unforgettable. So next time someone tries to bring chaos to your doorstep, stay grounded. Keep your voice steady. Keep your face still. Let them feel the weight of their actions without giving them the reaction they're craving. In your stillness, they'll hear everything they need to, and they'll regret ever thinking they had the power to disturb your peace. One of the most powerful forms of self-respect is setting boundaries without needing to explain them. When someone disrespects you, the first instinct might be to justify why their behavior hurt you, or to try to make them understand your limits. But true strength lies in enforcing your boundaries silently, without begging for understanding, without over-explaining, and without feeling guilty for protecting your peace. When you stop tolerating disrespect, and you do it calmly and consistently, people notice, and often they regret taking your kindness for granted. You don't need to slam doors or raise your voice. All it takes is a quiet shift in your behavior. You stop replying to messages that drain you. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop showing up for people who only call when they need something. At first, they might not even realize what's happening, but slowly, the access they once had to you begins to disappear, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Boundaries are not walls, they're filters. They let in what's good for you and block out what isn't. When you set boundaries unapologetically, you're not being cold, you're being clear. And clarity makes people uncomfortable, especially those who are benefiting from your lack of it. They start to realize that they can no longer manipulate you, guilt trip you, or cross your lines without consequences. And that's when the regret begins to settle in, not because you said anything harsh, but because your silence and distance speak volumes. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce. The moment you begin to protect your energy instead of trying to explain your value, everything changes. The ones who disrespected you will feel your absence in the spaces where they once had easy access, and that absence forces reflection. It makes them question why they no longer get the version of you that used to show up for everything and tolerate anything. You don't need to broadcast your boundaries. You just live by them. And when people cross them, you don't argue, adjust. You protect your time, your energy, and your peace without compromise. That quiet shift is far more powerful than any confrontation. It shows maturity, self-awareness, and a level of strength that doesn't need validation. Eventually, they remember how available you used to be, how patient, how generous, how forgiving, and they'll compare it to the distance they feel now. That gap between who you were and who you become will be filled with one feeling: regret. Not because you changed, but because you finally chose yourself. There's a certain calm in choosing not to seek revenge, not because you're weak, but because you understand something deeper, that life has a way of settling scores better than you ever could. When someone disrespects you, the natural urge might be to get even, to show them what they've done wrong. But there's a quiet strength in stepping back and letting karma do the work while you stay focused on your growth. That choice alone can be one of the most powerful moves you'll ever make. Revenge often keeps you tied to the very person who wronged you. It drains your energy, clouds your vision, and keeps your emotions stuck in the past. But when you let go of the need to retaliate and instead invest that energy into becoming a better version of yourself, you break that cycle. You're no longer reacting, you're evolving. And as you rise, the people who once disrespected you are forced to watch from the same place they tried to leave you in. That stings more than any words or actions ever could. Karma doesn't need an audience. It works silently, precisely, and often when people least expect it. While they continue living with the mindset that allowed them to mistreat you, life has a way of showing them consequences. It may not happen right away, but it always arrives often when they're least prepared for it. Meanwhile, you've moved on. You've grown. You've built something out of what they tried to break. And that success, that peace, that glow becomes the loudest response. There's dignity in choosing to keep walking, especially when you know you could clap back. But maturity means understanding that not everyone deserves a front row seat to your progress. You don't have to prove anything to those who doubted or disrespected you. Let them wonder how you managed to thrive without them. Let them hear about your wins from a distance. The mystery becomes part of the regret. In choosing growth over revenge, you give yourself something far greater: peace. You don't have to carry the weight of resentment. You don't have to rehearse what you'll say when karma finally catches up to them. You already know life handles what words cannot. And every step you take forward in silence is a reminder of how strong you are, how far you've come, and how much you've risen above the noise. So don't waste your energy trying to make anyone regret their actions. Just keep moving forward, focused, grounded, and aligned. Sooner or later, they'll feel the weight of your absence and the brilliance of your growth. And when they do, they'll regret ever thinking they could diminish someone who was always destined to rise. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to simply disappear. Not out of weakness, not out of defeat, but out of strength and self-respect. When someone disrespects you repeatedly, they expect you to stay. They expect you to keep showing up, to keep giving them access, to continue tolerating their behavior. But when you choose to walk away quietly, to remove yourself without warning, your absence becomes a louder message than your presence ever was. And in that silence, they begin to feel the loss they didn't think was possible. Disappearing with dignity isn't about ghosting or being petty, it's about reclaiming your energy. It means you've reached a point where you no longer see value in proving your worth to those who fail to recognize it. You stop engaging in meaningless conversations. You stop waiting for apologies. You stop trying to fix what you didn't break. Instead, you exit with grace, no drama, no final words, no explanation. Just gone. And that kind of disappearance is haunting. Why? Because it forces people to sit with their own actions. It gives them nothing to argue with, no reaction to fuel their ego. It leaves a space they can't fill with excuses or justifications. You were there, and then you weren't. That void becomes their lesson. They begin to realize that your presence was never something they were entitled to. It was a gift and they lost it. As time passes, they might try to reach out. They might wonder why you pull away. But by then, you've evolved into someone who no longer needs closure from the same people who caused the damage. You've healed, grown, and created a life where peace is the priority and disrespect has no place. Your disappearance wasn't to punish them. It was to protect you. What many don't understand is that silence doesn't mean surrender. It often means elevation. When you walk away from what drains you, you make room for what uplifts you. And those who once disrespected you will watch from a distance as you thrive without them. That realization hits harder than any argument, any clapback, any dramatic confrontation. So when someone makes the mistake of underestimating you, disrespecting your loyalty, or taking your kindness for granted, don't explain yourself. Don't fight for their attention. Just leave. And do it with such calm, such grace, that they can't stop thinking about it. Because long after you're gone, they'll feel it in the silence, in the space you used to fill, in the dignity you carried when you walked away. And in that space, regret will quietly settle in. When someone disrespects you, it's easy to think the only way to respond is through confrontation or loud declarations of self-worth.